lot of times, our automatic negative thoughts stem from errors in our thinking, and I'm going to talk about a couple of different examples of common thinking errors today, because I guarantee you probably do one of the ones I talk about. So it's important to know some of them, because once you understand what a common thinking error is, you can recognize it when you use it in your thoughts. You can say, oh, whoa, this is just X, this is just Y. Now, if I slow down and think about it, I can realize this negative thought is not true. Ultimately, the way to challenge negative thoughts, to overcome negative thoughts, is to think of the rational response. Use some reason, use some logic. That's our human superpower, right? We are not animals. We do not just have to accept the thought that pops into our head, go off of the instinct. No, we can actually slow down, think about it, and use reason, think of what's actually going on. And when we do that, it's easy to overcome our negative thoughts. Now let's do it. I'm going to talk about some common thinking errors, some examples, some ideas of what that might look like, and then we're going to think about the rational response to that thinking error, to that negative thought. Coming in at number one, we have all or nothing thinking, black or white thinking. That's another way it's commonly referred to. I like to refer to it, I just thought of this, so quote me if this ever blows up. I like to refer to it as Ricky Bobby thinking. You know, Talladega Nights, one of the funniest movies ever made. That's what I thought of when I was reading and learning more about these thinking errors, specifically about all or nothing thinking. This one is pretty straightforward. All or nothing thinking is where you categorize events or experiences into extremes. So it's either good or bad. There's no gray area. Everything is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. It's this or that. There's nothing in between, which is obviously not true. Going back to the Ricky Bobby example, if you've ever watched Talladega Nights, then you probably remember the line, if you ain't first, you're last. That is an example of all or nothing thinking, right? Ricky Bobby thought that if he didn't win the race, he was a complete failure, right? If you weren't going to be first, then there was no point in even playing. And the funny thing is, later on in that movie, when he finally meets his dad, I don't know exactly when it happens, but his dad comes up to him and he's kind of having this breakdown, right? He's having a hard time because he hasn't seen his dad in a long time. I don't remember exactly what happened, but that's what his dad told him when he was young. He's like, Dad, remember you told me that? You said if you ain't first, you're last. His dad didn't even think much about it. He just thought it was some silly little saying. And his dad even says, that doesn't even make sense. You can be second, you can be third, you can be fourth. I mean, come on, you can even be fifth. That is a perfect example of all or nothing thinking. Another example is thinking you're either great at something or you're terrible at something. So no matter what it is, you're probably good at some things and you're probably bad at some things. So let's just say you don't do great on tests. So you take this example and think, wow, I'm not good at tests. I'm not intelligent, so I must be dumb. Okay, that is obviously not the case. People just struggle with tests, right? We got to think of the rational response. What would be the rational response to that? No, I just have a hard time taking tests. I'm great at other things. I excel in other areas. I excel in writing essays. I excel in verbal communication, right? I excel in public speaking. I'm just not that great at taking tests, but that doesn't measure my intelligence. Intelligence lies on a spectrum, right? It's not all about doing well on a test. There are many other ways to measure intelligence. It's such a wide category. So that is a common thinking error, thinking that there is no gray matter in between. But if you take a step back, you can realize, okay, that's just one area that I might not be great at, but I'm great at a lot of things. And in fact, this is a spectrum. Another common thinking error is emotional reasoning. And this is kind of related, I think, to some of the other ones. From what I've read, I might have just been misunderstanding it, but I see how this relates to a lot of mental health issues. Emotional reasoning involves taking your emotional thoughts and using them as support and evidence for a conclusion that is not true. When I was reading about this, I pretty much immediately thought about people who have a hard time loving their body even when they are fit and healthy. So an example of a thinking error or an automatic negative thought might be, oh, I feel fat, therefore I must be fat. As I mentioned, the person is already fit and healthy. The doctor tells them they're healthy, the doctor tells them they're doing well. They eat healthy vegetables, they eat their fruits, right? They don't have a high body fat percentage, whatever. For an example like this, again, we need to think of the rational response. We need to challenge that thought. We don't have to accept it as true. We have to look for actual evidence. So if you're a fit person who feels fat, feels unhealthy, you might remember that, oh, my doctor did tell me that I'm at a healthy weight. Oh, I do eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. Oh, I do have a low body fat percentage. Just like the rest of these, if you slow down, think of the rational response, it becomes much easier to process that automatic negative thought, to be able to get it out of your head. A lot of times it's hard to recognize our own thinking errors, so don't be afraid to share this episode with a person who you think it might help. Maybe they're having some automatic negative thoughts and they're having a hard time overcoming those. Please share this episode so they can overcome those ants, right? Those pesky, annoying little thoughts. Or share the article, whatever you think is more helpful. I don't really care how the people feel better if they listen to my podcast, if they listen to somebody else's podcast, if they read it in a book, right? I just want to help people, and however they get helped is great. So if you think this episode will help them or something else, don't be afraid to share it with them, right? Don't be afraid to reach out to somebody who you think is struggling. Again, thank you so much for listening today. This was a good episode. I'm happy with how these are going. I think I'm improving myself. These are starting to get better and better, and I'm just loving the process. I'll see you next week on the next episode of Ion Motive. But until then, remember the Ion Motive. As always, live a charged life.